It's a bit of a temperature check, you might say, Fran. So let's take a look at which Eagle is heating up or cooling off with our Ace Hardware temperature check. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. You made the case, Fran, on allphly.com. This is very reasoned. This is calling it like you see it. There's a fair argument that this was, despite the lack of turnovers, Jalen Hurts' worst performance of the season. Explain why.
So let me just add an additional precursor.
Yes.
Because, again, it's like we talked about.
We're being very rational here.
Yes. It is. This is not he's a bad player. This is not that he's not worth the contract. The Eagles can't win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts. Like, it's not that.
Kobe Dean's allowed to have good games and bad games. Jalen Hurts is allowed to have good games and bad games.
I was thinking about this driving in. Like, people don't make as big of a deal if Myles Garrett has one pressure in a game, right?
Sure.
But that is the nature of playing the quarterback position. Is that you are under the spotlight, you are under the scrutiny. It is what it is. To me, in this game, and I was on this show a few weeks ago after he threw interception, say, hey, that's to me, Jalen played a better game than what people are saying. In this game, despite not throwing interceptions and not putting the ball on the ground, I just didn't think he played all that well. And over the last 2 weeks, I don't think he's played all that great. We can go throw by throw, drop back by drop back if we want, but it was, I didn't think it was a great performance.
And this is not accuracy.
No.
This is more about structurally both the protections that he has to be graded on because he is the one taking on that responsibility this year, setting those protections. And we keep bringing up the Jason Kelce conversation. Even when you're wrong, you're right. There were a couple times in this game where he was wrong and he was wrong.
Yeah,
right?
And at least it's the continued where you kind of look and you can see the frustration on film with guys, and so not everyone is on the same page and agreeing with what they're doing, or at least again reading body language.
Right.
That's how it seems to me, just kind of watching through the film. And I do have specific examples I wanted to hit on. I don't know if you wanted to go theme by theme, or do you want to go sequentially?
Let's talk about the sacks.
Okay.
And generally the pressure, because some of them didn't turn out to be sacks, but they were big pressures. And I texted you last night. I was going through the offense, and I get to the third or fourth play of the game, which is the first sack, and it's just oh man, what are we getting in for here? And explain what happens on that play.
So the Eagles, it was 2nd and 9, so it's the third play of the game. And the Eagles, they come out in a 2-by-2 set, and you're running a quick game concept to the left, and you're running a quick game concept to the right. And these are the things, stop me if you've heard this before in the chat, but we've talked about this a lot, all season long, about the issues that have cropped up when they line up this way and Jalen just has to drop back and kind of read the coverage. Because typically what happens when you are running a quick game concept to the left and a quick game concept to the right, if you're the quarterback, if you don't like that first read, then by the time you get back over to the other side, the other reads those routes are done because everybody else is running 3-step timing concepts. And so if you're reading the first one out and the ball doesn't come out, then now you get into scramble drill mode.
And it is typically designed that one side is for zone, one side is for man,
or one high versus two high, or whatever that is. And so it's up to the quarterback to say, okay, this is where I'm going to start. I'm going to start on the right side, and then I'm not even going to worry about the left side.
And not only does he not pull the trigger on this one, he sort of starts bailing the pocket very early when there's not that much pressure. To me that popped up a couple times in this game. But yeah, he starts to the left and he had Grant Calcaterra running to the flat, and it was open, it was there, right.
And that should have been where the ball came out, didn't come out. So
it would have been like a 4-yard gain,
right? So
right? It's not right. It's not like he missed a touchdown,
right? But he goes back to the right, and instantly he's like, all right, guys, scramble drill. He's you see him pointing at Saquon Barkley, you say, go. But I think that's the problem with some of these plays is that he drops back, and the timing is all. And now right off the bat, it's all right. We're in fire drill mode, and he runs into a sack. He runs to his right, comes back against the grain, and runs into a sack. So that was the first one. But there were five total sacks in this game, four total sacks. 2 of them I would put squarely on Hurts.
And this goes to the thing that you've talked about, Zach, which is, is this offense over-reliant on the big play? And I think it's tough because you want them to have the big play, and you can't just, if Saquon Barkley runs for 55 yards, you can't ding him for that, right? But structurally, is that a thing that you see from Jalen Hurts, that sometimes he's not willing to just take the 4-yarder? He wants to extend in search of the big play, and sometimes that can get them in negative situations.
That was honestly the spin, if you wanted to look at it optimistically, to the no turnovers, no interceptions thing in the summer in training camp. That was what I think the biggest takeaway was. And honestly, we have seen a little bit of that. It's his average depth of target this year is lower than it's been. His percentage of throws short of the sticks is lower than it's been. I think he has shown more of a propensity to kind of take what the defense is giving him. We've certainly seen that against the blitz this year. His ADOT against pressure and against the blitz has been lower than it really has ever been. So I think we're seeing layers of that. And again, kind of going back big picture, all quarterbacks go through these kind of peaks and valleys, right? All the best quarterbacks have these moments. And it's just funny, like when I posted this yesterday, and it's all these people in my mentions that like don't follow me or that have like 53 followers, and they're like, oh, like all quarterbacks go through this, and everyone's just looking for something to complain with Hurts. Like, it's not that big of it's okay to say he didn't have a good game in this one against the Giants from that standpoint.
So you're driving home today. You get a call on your phone. It's an unknown number from Prosser, Washington, and you pick it up, and it's Kellen Moore. And he says, I'm sorry I don't work with you anymore, but I've been seeing your stuff, and this is like incredible. This is the most informed I've ever seen from a media member before, and I'm trying to figure this out because look, I'm tasked with trying to get the Jalen to be the best version of himself. We had training camp, we've had 6 weeks, and it's not clicking. What should I do? How do I fix this? What's your recommendation to him?
To me, the first question that I would have would be the increase in more full field, like pure progression plays. So you think back the touchdown to Saquon Barkley in week 1 against Green Bay, where you had, instead of it being, two receivers one way, two receivers one way, it was more, all right, I'm going to work to Saquon, to Dallas, and his eyes start left, and he's working across the field. If Saquon's not open, then I'm going to go to Dallas. If Dallas isn't open, then I'm going to go to Devontae. If Devontae's not open, and you're seeing that used to be a very college way. That was like the Mike Leach like air raid style of progression reading for a quarterback. And people would always say, "Oh, that doesn't work in the NFL because you have to be able to read coverage." You're starting to see more of that go through the NFL. I feel like if you look at even like the Detroit Lions offense, there are elements of these certain plays that they run where it's, again, that pure progression style for Jared Goff, and that's the way that he played in college, honestly, was, all right, I'm going to go 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. Everybody kind of has a role and is an effective option on any given drop back. But the thing is that some coaches may look at that and say that is more difficult than just running curl flat and slant flat over to the other side, right? Like that. So that's what we don't know is how do they feel about those kind of concepts? How does Jalen feel about those kind of concepts? Or is that harder for him? Or is the only way to simplify it, hey, we're just going to go screen game and RPO, and it becomes more of like the 2021 version of the offense where then it's literally like, all right, like this is the throw. It's one read and the ball is out. That's the question we don't have the ability to answer.
Well, I do know Jalen has great reverence for Lincoln Riley's offense, right? I mean, he thrived in that offense, and we also know the Eagles interviewed Cliff Kingsbury to be their OC this past year. So maybe that is an offensive style that is a philosophy or an approach that fits Jalen Hurts.
That's a good point.
Further into the specifics of those pressures and those sacks, give us a couple other big ones, and maybe specifically on the protections as well.
Yeah, so we'll go to the second sack, and this was it was 3rd and 10. I believe this was the second possession of the game. This was the Dexter Lawrence, the first Dexter Lawrence sack. No, this was the Brian Burns sack. Excuse me. So this one you would just look at, and I think if you look at it, you say, okay, like their guy's one up front. All right, Dexter Lawrence pushed the pocket. We talked last week about how the Giants are really good at dictating their fronts. If they want to get a one-on-one, they can do it. This was a great example of that, where they line up 3 defensive linemen to Cam Jurgens' left. And so that basically says, okay, we're going to have one-on-ones across the board. Fred Johnson's one-on-one with Brian Burns. Landon Dickerson's one-on-one with the second defensive tackle. It might have been Elijah Chapman. And then Cam Jurgens is one-on-one with Dexter Lawrence. To keep Landon Dickerson, or to keep Mekhi Becton from coming over, we're going to put a linebacker over Mekhi Becton. So now he has to block. That's the way that they want. Mekhi Becton's got to block the linebacker, and then Lane Johnson's one-on-one with the defensive end. So it's 5 versus 5. Now, the Eagles kept Saquon Barkley into block. So there's 2 ways that you can go about that if you're the Eagles, if you're an offensive line. You can either say, okay, Saquon Barkley, you're going to help maybe chip Brian Burns. You are going to block the linebacker that's standing over the right guard,
so that he can double Dexter Lawrence,
so that he can slide over to Dexter Lawrence. Or Option C is what the Eagles did do in this situation, which is Saquon Barkley is going to release up into the middle of the defense, and he is going to help out Cam Jurgens with Dexter Lawrence. So he's throwing a shoulder into Dexter Lawrence. It's not like he was releasing out. He stayed in the block and was helping. To me, I look at that and say, you're probably better served just keeping Saquon Barkley on Bobby Okereke. Mm-hmm. He takes on the linebacker. Let's have Mekhi Becton in his 350-pound frame. Let's get him over to help out Cam Jurgens on Dexter Lawrence. And so the Eagles didn't do that. And so the one-on-ones, Dexter Lawrence, I mean, he pushes Cam Jurgens back into the pocket. Jalen Hurts has no ability to stand up. Brian Burns turns the corner, and he ends up getting the sack. That's the one where Jalen Hurts ends up sliding in the pocket. He just said, all right, white flag, I'm going down, which is good. But to me, that was a protection thing that probably could have been avoided.
And that one is specifically interesting to me in the context of the description that Jason Kelce has given about the way that they went about trying to block Aaron Donald over the years, which is that we are going to double him on every single play. We're not going to beat him, and if it means that we have a running back one-on-one with the defensive end, that's fine. We don't want him to beat us. And so it seems like that is specifically a Hurts decision and not necessarily the way that the offensive line would be structured, because I believe that they put Dexter Lawrence on that sort of game plan wrecking level.
And Dexter Lawrence had a sack later in the game. It was like a third quarter, I think, where Dexter he got the sack. It was for -8 yards, and Landon Dickerson. It was basically they had Lawrence on Steen that time, so Lawrence is on the other side. It's Dickerson who's on the linebacker on Okereke, and Okereke doesn't even rush. He just stands there and basically holds Landon Dickerson up. And Dickerson, you can tell, he turns around after the sack and he just looks up into the sky, and you can just read the body language. You're like, he's annoyed by how this happened, and obviously he's pissed because they gave up a third down sack.
Right.
But also, I'm sure there's probably some frustration there in terms of I could have helped Cam, I could have helped Tyler Seen on this situation, but instead I got wasted by the linebacker and Barkley. He just or it might have been Gainwell in that situation. Whoever the running back wasn't a part of the protection. Mm-hmm. So that would be the argument there in that case, in terms of everybody just not being on the same page, and that falls under Jalen Hurts' purview as being in charge of the protections now this year.
Speaking about third downs, and Jalen's involved in this. Bo knows I don't need blue chew when it comes to talking about third downs and red zone. I mean, that
really gets you going. Yep.
Yeah. So look, 1 of 13 was the worst of the Nick Sirianni era. The Eagles were 1 of 13. Now they were 0 for 3. In short red zone, as it's defined on True Media. And then they were 3 of 3 converting fourth downs on those, right? So as Kellen Moore said today, you make the third down call knowing you have 2 cracks at it. But third down, you're not going to survive in the NFL going 1 of 13 on third down, or even near that. What did you see on third down, and how do they fix it?
So real quick. We'll just go through a couple of these. So they had 1, 2, 3, 4. They had 8 dropbacks on third down. 3rd and 2, they threw a screen. Actually, no. Here we go. 3rd and 2. This was the mesh play to Devontae Smith. So I put this out on Twitter. Yeah, a different conversation. We'll save it for. But an incompletion, a throwaway by Jalen Hurts. So he was reading it out and gets stuck. Ends up not throwing it. 3rd and 5, he threw the back shoulder. It looked like Jalen Hurts changed the play at the line of scrimmage and threw a goal ball outside the numbers on 3rd and 5 to Jahan Dotson, and it's incomplete. The problems we talked about last week in terms of low probability throws in the offense, good example of that. 3rd and 7, that's a scramble by Jalen Hurts. This was their only conversion of the day. So it's 3rd and 7.
This is to the topic.
Yeah. Yes, so it's 3rd and 7. They have a blitz call on the New York Giants, so they're blitzing, and for one of the first times this year, free rusher. So there was a blown protection from that standpoint. It looked like everybody it should have been a slide one way, and it should have been Kenny Gainwell on the blitzing linebacker. I believe it was Fox that came in clean, and nobody went to the linebacker. It probably should have been Gainwell, but also, the offensive line that was sliding, that was going that way, they weren't sliding full either. So it was communications on both sides. And again, that goes to Jalen Hurts in terms of everybody's not on the same page on this protection call. So, he made a great play on that, but they honestly should have been 0 for on third down, because that's a play that you don't expect that he's going to make every single time.
Well, and this is part of the, we can criticize or call it as we see the protection stuff, but at the same time, in that very specific situation, And there's probably 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the entire league who would get a first down on that play. So he does deserve credit for that. That's an unbelievable athletic play.
Yeah, and to the playing for fourth down thing. I mean, they got sacked 3 times on third down, so they weren't playing for fourth down on those. And then,
but those were third and medium, third and long. I'm saying the third and short.
The third and short. So we went through the third and short. So 3rd and 10 they got sacked. 3rd and 10 they got sacked. 3rd and 11 they got sacked. 3rd and 14, which was the first one of the day. That's where he threw the check down and Barkley ran over and melted Dane Belton.
Melted Belton. All right. Anything else on the protection or pressure front that's worth getting?
No, I think that's the big one. We covered the 2 aspects of it. Is that the blitz pickup wasn't outside, and they didn't blitz a ton in this game, New York, but we saw that one come through clean. And then I mentioned, I think there are just times where Hurts invites his own pressure, and then there was the ones where like the protection call. You could argue, and that might be picking nits, but you could argue the protection call could have been better.
We all silly like the mayor.